All right, we are back for another edition of Sunday Night Astro Live, and I am Robert Phoenix. And tonight we are joined in the co-pilot's chair by Miss Peachy. Miss Peachy's little neighborhood boyfriend showed up, came looking for her a few minutes ago, and he passed on by. He was a cool cat. He passed on by. It says you started, but you didn't. Well, let's go look over on YouTube. Yep, I'm sure we started. Anyway, how is everybody? I think Peachy's recovered from her neighborhood tomcat. Yeah, he came to say hello, didn't he? He kept on going. It's the way life is sometimes. Sometimes the tomcats just keep on going. They got another destination. Meanwhile, Peachy's here holding down the fort. All right. How is everyone? Are we having fun yet? Has the fun just begun? Let me fix my collar here. We got a really big show ahead of us tonight. And a lot of it is going to be geopolitical. It's just the way it goes. It's the time we're living in. There are players, there are places, there are events that are happening, and it is an astrological goldmine. So as a quote-unquote mundane astrologer, I would be foolish not to talk about these things. So tonight, I will try to touch on some of the personal stuff because we've got some things happening. Mercury retrograde. It's going direct next week. You know, I was driving around in my money pit today, also known as my truck. And I said to myself, I cannot wait for Mercury retrograde to end because I need to sell this fucking truck like as soon as I possibly can before the gas goes through the roof and somebody will buy my truck just to live in it versus drive around in it. So that was to me, that was part of what I did today. I started detailing this truck, also known as the money pit on four wheels. I can't wait. Mercury retrograde ends next weekend. Set your calendars, set your clocks, all your major life decisions, which you've put on hold for now. Green light. It can be lit up. We also are on the cusp here of a new moon. We have the moon in Aquarius tonight. We're going to go over some of that. Getting ready to go into balsamic phase and going through the stellium of Piscean planets and coming out the other side. Brand spanking new in Pisces and then moving straight into Aries. And then we're going to have the moon in Aries conjuncting Neptune, Saturn, Venus. People are going to be real emotional. Hot. They're going to be hot under the collar when we get into the new moon phase right there. So we're going to talk about that tonight. There's like personal astrology going on. We could hit on that. Sirius has just gone into Taurus. I'm telling you, you want to get out there, you want to plant some crops. We got this new moon in Pisces coming up. You always want to get a new moon in an earth sign, but I think water signs are the second best option. And with a new moon in Pisces and Ceres just moving into Taurus, it is planting. It's going to be planting season up here in the Northern Hemisphere. And we'll get into some of that. But tonight we're talking about big ticket item stuff. Oh, by the way, I don't know if you guys saw this, but as of last week, or this week rather, Marco Rubio skyrockets in prediction markets. What did your guys say last week? If you watched the show last week, you saw me open up a can of serpents here, can of baby snakes with Marco Rubio. And this is just from 4 days ago. Marco Rubio skyrockets in prediction markets for 2028. Rubio has overtaken VP J.D. Vance, who previously held a significant lead. Marco Rubio's 2028 presidential odds hit an all-time high. Rubio leapfrogs Vance and Newsom to become betting favorite. So Marco Rubio is sitting in a very good position. Now, this gets into some of what we're going to talk about tonight. Because Donald Trump's chart is not good. It's not good. Now, as many of you know, because word travels fast these days, that the Ayatollah Khamenei, I like saying that, and Benjamin Netanyahu and Trump were all born on eclipses. Imagine that. One of them is dead. The other, MIA, although we have seen some AI-looking videos, which look very strange, one of which had 6 fingers. I never noticed that Netanyahu had 6 fingers before. AI likes to do that. You know, AI likes to enhance humans. It's practicing. So I think, you know, and some people come out and say, oh, he's not really dead. He's LARPing on everybody. I'm not so sure. I am not so sure. The response, I mean, this guy's usually fucking everywhere, right? You turn on your TV, it's like, what? Does this guy ever fucking sleep? So when has he ever not had an opportunity to get in front of a camera and talk shit? You would think now maybe they'll send in the clones, or they got these masks, these crazy masks that Biden was wearing for a couple of years. Whoever was playing Biden, I think it was Jim Carrey. Anyway, they could set Netanyahu up with a mask. But if you were Netanyahu and you're around and you're live and kicking, wouldn't you want to come to the United States and address the Congress? I think you would. I think you would. I think you'd want to go there and talk about how great the war is going and what a great partnership the United States and Israel have. And between the two countries will restore real peace and real order to the Middle East. How has he not done this yet? How has he not done it within the first week? That's when you really need to sell it before things start going sideways. But he hasn't. And this guy's always coming here. And for days and days and days, nobody's seen him. And then the rumor starts spreading that his brother is dead, that one of their defense ministers, this guy Ben-Gvir, is dead. Not dead, but seriously injured. Of course, it was in an automobile accident. And then the rumors start creeping up that Netanyahu might be dead. Okay, so let's say, for the sake of consistency and pattern recognition, that's true. That means that 2 out of the 3 world leaders born on eclipses that are the Trinity, the triune forces of this war, 2 out of the 3 have gone on to the next world. Which, if you're the third and you understand the pattern recognition, you might be a little trepidatious about the future. Just saying. A little trepidatious about the future. So we'll go through every one of their charts. And I'll show you where the eclipses are and all that stuff. So that's on the schedule for tonight. We're also just going to go back and we'll look at Iran's chart. We'll look at Israel's chart. We'll look at the U.S. chart. And we'll see what's going on there with all 3 countries. And catch up astrologically. This Uranus in Gemini is going to be something else, man. It's going to be something else. I can feel it. It is going to turn the world. You think it's weird now? Just wait. Just wait till Uranus in Gemini hits the stage. It's like Pluto, hold my beer. It's going to get really weird. We'll talk a little bit about that, and mostly in relationship with kind of a late addition to tonight's show and things that I wanted to look at. And that is the Democratic candidate for senator in Texas, James Tallarico. So I don't have a birth time for him, but I tried to do my rectification special. It could be completely wrong, but I kind of feel good about it. So we're going to look at James Tallarico's chart as well, who I think, Matt, I just saw this thing with Matt Walsh, and he was sloughing off James Tallarico, like that he's crazy, and he is. James Tallarico is completely and utterly insane, but he presents in such a sane and earnest fashion. It's completely mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing. Some people are tossing around the old AC, the old Antichrist, or James Tallarico. I don't know. I think Jared and Marco Rubio could give him a run for his money, but James Tallarico is really deceptive. He might be the most deceptive human being I've ever seen. A guy who has the ability to come across a little bit like Opie from it's like he's like a cross between Opie and Pat Robertson. That's what he reminds me of. And you never see him get ruffled. You never see him succumb to any kind of pressure. He takes tough questions and turns them into like radically biblical responses. And he does it with the utmost straight face, perfect cadence. This guy has perfect cadence. He's calm. He looks the part, right? And his strategy is there's a certain political strategy called the big tent, that he's a big tent candidate. And what that means is that there's a lot of people that can fit under the canopy of James Tallarico. You could have Democrats, you could have disaffected Republicans, you could have independents. And that is his platform. He wants to be a unifier. He wants to be a unifier. He's doubling down on his bizarre version of Christianity, while he's also singling out Christian nationalism and all the sort of pseudo-fascist stripes of Christianity. He's a very slippery character. And I'm telling you, when you hear him talk, he'll say some insane shit, but the way that he says it sounds very believable. I mean, that to me, that is almost like the hallmark of the devil himself. You go, yeah, that sounds really reasonable. Yeah, God is non-binary. I never thought of it that way. Yeah, I get it, James. Tell us some more. So we'll look at his chart tonight. We got the chart of the moment. And that's a lot. It's like about a 3-course meal. We'll start with the chart of the moment. We'll get into the big three. Then we'll take a look at Iran's chart, Israel's chart, USA's chart. We'll take a look at all three of them. And then we'll do a flyby on Tallarico. And then whatever else comes up along the way. I think that should do it. It'll give us a couple of hours to hang out and dissect the geopolitical situation vis-a-vis the planets. And hopefully we'll have some more clarity. And at the very least, you'll be entertained and you'll have some fellowship. Some fellowship and chat. So speaking of chat, let me just go in and do a quick meet and greet. See who we have here. We got Michael Cisternino, the California contrarian, misbehaving too. There's Barbara Boots. There's Liddy Lou from McKinney. Pixie About Town. That's Christina Maria from Canada. Hello, Christina Maria. JJ, Rain de Blanc. We're blessed. We're blessed with the Virgo. JJ. Pengrides here. The new next pod is with us. What's up? Diane. Great to have you here. Miss Nikia. Hello, Miss Nikia. Andrea Garland. There's Charlie. There's Renee. What's going on, Renee? What's going on there? Down the Wombat Hole. Autumnal Dark Moon greetings from down under. I've been checking out some of Down the Wombat Hole's astrological work. Good stuff. Really good stuff. Rosie Posey. There she is, the lovely and talented one. Tammy Lynn's here. Sharon Lewis is here. Let's see who else do we have here. Benita Carmel. Hi, Benita. Lynette Jardine. Mad Maxine. Peter Bayonne. Production value looking good, Robert. You like that little thing I did? You like that little intro? That took me, I'm not going to tell you how long it took me. We'll just leave it at that. Maya Rose, what's going on? Your thoughts are under the influence of alcohol or marijuana. What's the difference? No, they're not. No, they're not. Let's see. Who do we have here? Shelly Meyer. What's up, Shelly Meyer? Zerlith Eternal. What's going on, Steve? Jeez, I checked out, Steve posted a picture of himself over on Facebook and his weight loss and all the shit he's doing. Looking good, Steve. Keep going. Also, North Node dancing with Mercury Retro and Mars. We're doing the North Node dance. The North Node dance. It's not quite a prance. It's the North Node dance. Blue is my color. That's true. Let's see who else. Josie's Jazzy Junk. Triple J. Steve just started germinating my sativa crop. I'm excited. All right. There you go. Steve, number 2, I started my seed planting today. Then it poured. Glad I packed the soil. You'll get that with the new moon in Pisces. You get the water. May as well do it, right? Let's see. Naturally, Mother Earth. 15 inches of snow in Minnesota. Our friend Neil had a power outage up there in Wisconsin today. And boof. I've had enough presidents. Can we drop now? Can we stop now? What's the point? They're going to force it on us. I have this theory that if nobody voted, it would be like they would just be rolling out results. I mean, it would. They would just roll out the results the way that nobody voted. They would have a fake election. It would be like all these votes are coming in from all these different places. And that's what would happen. And everybody said, did you vote? No, I didn't vote. Did you vote? No, I didn't vote. Fuck, I didn't vote. Did you? No, not me. Did you vote? No, I didn't vote. Well, if I didn't vote, how the hell did this happen? Is Bibi dead? Let's heard a video today from the YouTubers that have views are down across the board for various reasons. I hate to see you beating yourself up. That's okay, Paula. Thank you. Appreciate it. I vent every now and then. They are ripping that AI video to shreds. Yes, they are. Well, let's see. BB's ego wouldn't let him stay away from the camera. Shelly, I think you're completely right about that. Hey, there's Jack Strom. What's up, Jack? Painted torso here. Wisdom guide. MSJ 769. What's going on? The gloomy little glowworm. Great. James Tallarico takes it to another level. I'm telling you, man. This guy he's something else. Unless your show without watching the sounds exact. Not true. Unless your last show without watching, he sounds exactly like a cult leader. Who's that? This your last show without watching. He sounds like that. I sound exactly like a cult leader? Or James Tallarico? Who sounds like a cult leader? Let's see. I've been accused of being a cult leader, by the way. But I do a shitty job of keeping the cult. Let's see. Steve chimes in. Neptune conjunct Saturn Aries. Trying to initiate a new political structure makes sense. Depends on what it is. But I can see where Net You showed up on a podcast today. Well, we'll see. I can't believe your take on him. He's totally insane. I agree with you. I don't think I don't think we're but I'm telling you, man, he's trouble. James sounds like a cult leader. Oh, totally. Totally. Absolutely. 100%. Can I talk about Chiron and Aries tonight? I feel like everybody is underestimating it. Sure. I could talk about Chiron and Aries. I've talked about it a lot in the past. Happy to talk about it again tonight. But we're almost off of it. Chiron and Taurus is coming down the pipe, and I like to stay a little ahead of the curve, if you know what I mean. I did go dark. I hit the wrong button. Tondar is here. I hit the wrong button. Happens every now and then. That was all staged. I staged my own blackout. Miles and Bink in the house. So above it's here. Did I miss somebody? HM Grant. Blood Hair Talk. What's going on, Jen? Looked dapper with the fresh cut. She took a little bit more off than I wanted to. That's okay. I can live with it. Gone squatching. Robin Dan is here. You should have seen Neil's vintage espresso machine. Julian Hartwell brought some True Hemp Science gummies today. Whoop! Hey, Julian. We need to play some of this young man's music. Maybe we'll do an outro tonight with your music. Stick around long enough. We'll play some Julian Hartwell. Paula Tutt. Knockdown speculates Bibi has been abducted. And it can be by the Israeli adversaries or Iran, it's by anyone. But Michael says he's worth more alive to most possible perps. That sounds interesting. Yeah, no, my take on James Tallarico is he's dangerous. I don't think we can trust much of what we see these days. That's why we're here. Chiron is conjunct Eris tonight. It's been conjunct Eris for a little while. Let's see. Kelly's at, I hope Chiron gives me less problems in Taurus. Speaking of mothers passing, today would be my mother's birthday. The Ides of March for old Kathy. And it's been almost, since she passed away in 2025. So let's see. Yeah, 2023, 2024, 2024, she passed away. February 2024. So, God, I can't believe it's been that long. Seems just like yesterday. She was a tough old broad, man. Let me tell you. She was a Pisces, but there wasn't a whole lot of Pisces about her. She had a lot of Aries. A lot of Aries. I have her chart here. You guys want to see my mother's chart? I'll bring my mother's chart up. Let's see, where is it? Right there. No, that's not her. That's different. Man, maybe I don't have her. I should. Yikes. I think I kept the wrong Kathy. Anyway, she did not have a lot of Pisces in her chart. I'll tell you what she had. She was a Cancer rising with Pluto in Cancer on the ascendant. Talk about fucking tough. Man, that Pluto in Cancer on her ascendant was something else. So her planets were as follows. Moon in Pisces, Sun in Pisces, full moon, born on a full moon in Virgo. Venus in Aries. Mercury in Aries. Are you sensing a theme here? Mars in Taurus. She was a stubborn woman. Jupiter in Aquarius, Saturn in Aries. So my mother had a stellium of Mercury, Venus, and Saturn all in Aries and separated by, let's see, 1, 4, 6, separated by 5 degrees. That's, I mean, when you have planets like that show up all bunched up in a really tight orb like that, that's really tricky. It's really tricky to sort of figure out how they all work together in unison, and especially in Aries. And I'll tell you what, my mother had an amazing affinity for finding obstacles. If there was a tougher road to take, she'd find it. If she could make something difficult, she would. It was like she needed that thing to push against in her world. She was something else that way. Uranus in Taurus. That would be a pretty wide conjunction to Mars, barely. And then Neptune in Virgo at 19 degrees. So Neptune was kind of around her moon. So she had this moon-Neptune conjunction in Virgo, which was a little challenging at times. A little challenging at times. But there's a lot of service in there too. What else? And there's that Pluto in Cancer. And so her rising sign was, I think, around 26 Cancer. Pluto was right on it. And then Chiron in Gemini. And what's interesting about her Chiron, since we're going to be talking about Chiron tonight, is that she was born into a family that had 5 siblings, and she was the oldest of 5 siblings. So there was a lot of Gemini going on in her sibling world, right? Wounded siblings too. Very, very wounded siblings. Her youngest brother had some form of, I don't know what you would call it, maybe slight Down syndrome. He was at the end. There wasn't a lot of genetic code left by the time they got to number 5. Sweet guy, wounded, very wounded. Her middle brother, super bright, but also very wounded. Like he was so wounded that he actually had to spend, this is when he was a young teen, he had to spend time away from the family at some kind of hospital near the seaside in New Jersey for an extended period of time. And he was kind of a celebrity for it. Like they did stories about him in the newspaper. And it's like, I don't know what was wrong with him, right? But he was definitely wounded. Like he had some issues. And he eventually, bounced back, but a super nice guy, really smart, but messy life, really messy life. And then her second to youngest brother, the only surviving member of that family, who's a Capricorn, they were super tight, and he really misses her, loves her dearly. But even that relationship sort of got dinged up in the last few years of her life. So a lot of wounds with siblings with Chiron in Gemini. And I think so her Chiron is at 25 degrees. And so in 1958, she was, 20? So she was 22. So her big wound happened her chirotic crisis happened when she was 25. I know exactly what it was, too. I know exactly what that crisis was. I was kind of there for it. I was kind of there for it. In fact, I was there for it. So I'll tell you, this is a lesson in astrology. Okay. Here we go. So she's married, of course, to my father, and we're living in New Jersey. And my father's having a really tough time. First of all, he doesn't like New Jersey. He's from California. Second of all, it's like these guys came back from Korea, and there was like this weird kind of recession. It was just so bizarre. It's like the guys that came back from World War II, everything's fucking booming. But the guys coming up from Korea, it was hard. There was like this weird stuff with the job market and this weird recession, and it was hard for him to get a job. And he wound up working at, I believe, Georgia Pacific. It was a box company. He had to work at night. He hated it. But in the meantime, he went to beautician school. He learned how to become a beautician. He was a Leo. He was good at it too. But he hated New Jersey. So there was a night where everybody had been drinking. Not me. I was only 3. Everybody had been drinking. And my father had a history growing up in California as being kind of a tough guy. He was wiry. He had that wiry strength, Anyway, and he's a Leo, kind of a short temper. And the thing about my father was that there was part of him, large part of him, that was like psychologically adept. Like he was really, really good at figuring people out and not afraid to kind of mess with the chessboard, if you know what I mean. So this one night, they get all liquored up, and then they start barking at each other. Right? Her family starts barking at my old man. And then I don't know what happened after that, what happened next, but I think he wound up knocking out 3 of them. I swear to God, this is a true story. And I know it sounds terrible, but we all have like weird shit in our background, right? And I remember being shuttled off into a neighbor's home. Like they didn't want me to see it, right? So I am hanging out there. I'm like, what's going on out there? And then eventually we go back to our apartment, and I'll never forget this. First time I saw my mother cry, and so she was crying, and there was the light in the bedroom seemed really cold and electric. There wasn't any warmth to it. It was a very strange vibe, and it wasn't long after that we were moving to California, and that was like at the time the age of 25, that was the degree of my mother's Chiron. And that's when, of course, Gemini is your local world, right? Your world around you. That's what it represents. And also siblings and things like that, right? And I think my father like knew at a certain level, like the only way that he'd be able to move back to California is if he made living in New Jersey completely untenable. And I think that's what he did. I think that's what he did. And it's like, okay, we can't stay here anymore. We're going to California. And honestly, look, I loved my grandparents, but I'm glad we moved to California because and no slight to New Jersey. I've been back there. There's some very nice parts. I have fond memories as a child from New Jersey, but if I had to pick a state to grow up in, I think I'd take California. Anyway, there you go. There's a little Chiron story from my mother's past, and we've all got them. We've all got them. It's actually pretty badass. My dad was feared by contemporaries. My father, who was a Leo, born August 1st, 1935, Mars and Scorpio, by the way. He said to me, if people don't respect me, then they'll fear me. He used to say this shit to me, right? And then he would look me in the eyes. One time he said, if you hit the king, you must kill the king. I'm like 12 years old. I'm like, Jesus, isn't that a little heavy? I mean, I understand where you're coming from here, right? You're kind of laying down the law, but it's a little heavy. California, me too, Robert. My dad is a Leo too. Yeah. Between that Virgo moon and all that Aries, I bet she knew what everybody should be doing and wasn't shy about it. She was weird that way. You cannot negate the Pisces. You cannot negate the Pisces. There was a passive aggressive kind of vibe with the Pisces. But I'll tell you what my mother did. This is where all that Aries came into play. And I'm super proud of this fact that my mother had a degree, high school degree, and eventually winds up working for the Navy, which is what? Aries, right? Pisces, Sun, and then all those Aries planets. That's like fucking Navy, right? Now, she didn't enlist, but she worked on the civilian side for the Naval Department for the entirety of her life. And she was a grinder, man. With all that Aries, she was just a total grinder. And she was involved in contracts and utilities. And by the time she'd reached her zenith in the Navy, working on the civilian side, she had a GS-13 or something like that. I forget which GS was high. And it was the same level that, and I'll use the word men here, a woman or two maybe, but mostly men. And they all had engineering degrees. And they had the same GS number she did and were mostly involved in the same sort of, how do I say this? ancillary field of civilian supply side service to the Navy. And so she did that just on a fucking high school diploma. And I was, I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, that's something. That is really, really something. And that's astrology in action right there. Just a total grinder. And I always, when I first really looked at her chart and I added up the Pisces and the Aries and the Navy stuff, it was like, there it is right there. Let's see. My mom is a Pisces, passive aggressive. They're like that. Yeah, it can be like that. Steve is funny. I wish my dad talked like that. That's why I talk like that. You're an Aries. You got the license. He sounds delightful. My father was a trip. He's one of the most interesting people I've ever met in my life. Seriously. They broke the mold. He was incredibly talented. My chart is very similar to your mom's. My birthday is 3/13. I'm Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, and the rest is a lot of Aries. There's a career for you in the Navy. I hear they're hiring. My lunchbox, thank you for the transit reading. My pleasure. I got to tell you, man, I know that sometimes I'll get on here and I'll lament about views every now and then. But I love my job. I really do. I get to hang out with people. I get to get into their charts. I get to get into their lives. I get to connect with them at a deep level. I wouldn't trade it in for anything else. So I know every now and then the tea kettle blows, but at the end of the day, it's all worth it. All right. Let's see. Where should we go? Let's look at what we got going on now. Now that I bared my family's skeletal bones. All right. I can never figure out. I can never figure out why my father was so into my mother in some ways. I couldn't figure it out until I looked at his chart. He's a Libra rising, and in his seventh house was my mother's Saturn, her Mercury, and her Venus. Seventh house. Boom. There it is, right? Partnership. Like on a certain level, they seem to be a bit of an odd pair. But when I looked at that chart, I'm like, I totally get it. I totally get why you aligned with her. Okay, I came here for journalism, blended stories and influence on social affairs. Remember, your warriors are kicking. You got to be kidding me. I'm missing a warrior's ass kicking. She gave him structure. We'll save that for another time. We'll save that for another discussion. Let's see. Let's get into the chart of the moment. My new favorite player in the Warriors is this guy, Guy Santos, who is born July 22nd. So he is a 0 degree Leo. And Guy is from Brazil. And he has such an infectious spirit. He's like really fun to watch. And he's actually a really good player too. All right, disregard the outer. Here, let me do this. I want to get rid of the outer planets. Okay, hold on. Let me go back here. I want to get rid of this outer shit. Where are we? I mean, I can just put it up there, but it's to me, it's distracting. Give me just a second here. The Warriors actually usually play the Knicks pretty tough, I have to say. But they're banged up. Oh fuck it, we'll just use this one. Just disregard the just disregard the outer planets. They're just a distraction. Okay, let me go back here. All right, here we go. Okay, all right. So just forget about that out there. That's where we are. Sunday, March 15th, 2026. And we started this at 7:10 p.m. So we're coming up a bit on an hour here. We got the moon in quirky Aquarius. Are you feeling a little goofy and eccentric tonight? So here we are. We're in the balsamic phase. So by Tuesday morning, we're real. And I think that the balsamic moon in Pisces. Oh man, I think there's going to be a lot of day drinking going on. A lot of day drinking. It's what it feels like. I think, okay, how do I frame this? Now, I'm not going to frame it like it's the end of the world. But there's something about this moon during this particular given point in time that has a great deal of sadness and there's something about this moon that has a deep sadness and a nostalgia to it. It's like if I told you and you knew that within 48 hours, 72 hours, we go 72 hours, that the world as we know it would be really different. Really, really different. And that you had 72 hours to soak up the memory of the world you once knew, what would you do? How would you do it? Because that's what this moon feels like. It feels, first of all, Pisces is the last sign in the zodiac. That's number one, right? And number two, you got, the balsamic moon has already been around for a long time, right? Like, it's been around so long, it's starting to turn to vinegar, hence the term balsamic. And when you get into Pisces, that's some hard vinegar. That's like 100 proof vinegar. That's hillbilly vinegar. But there's also a sense of like wistfulness with this moon. Because when this moon like goes new and moves into Aries, man, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, right, this is going to be the first new moon, because when it comes off of Pisces, it's going to be right there on the edge of Aries, right? Be right there in the edge of Aries. This is going to be the first new moon that comes in contact with Neptune and Saturn since Neptune and Saturn went into Aries. This is it, right? And it feels inflamed, really inflamed. And it's also very much connected to a new time. And to me, like, this is what, however this thing goes down with Saturn and Aries is about. It's about a new time. Because Saturn represents time. It's the great timekeeper. It's the clock of the zodiac. And Aries is new. But there's something about Saturn and Aries, besides it being in its fall, that sets it apart from other Saturns. You know, like you could put Saturn in Leo or Saturn in Sagittarius, and they're fire signs, right? But they have different connotations. You know, Saturn in Leo is like the guardrail of the king. You know, Saturn in Leo is like keeping the king in check. It's like the king must be sober and moral and upright and be involved with setting a standard for others. There's a lot of responsibility. Like with Saturn and Leo, generally people with Saturn and Leo in their charts, they don't have very fun childhoods. Unless they're like studying to be a chess master or something like that. Unless their fun is regimented and from day one, right? Like, and that's all they do. And they grew up to be a chess master or something like that. Well, like that's a way that you could kind of get into a Saturn and Leo, but it's not fun, Saturn and Leo. You know, and there's this sense with Saturn and Leo that, you know, there's like, you got a lot of power, you know, and with a lot of power comes responsibility. At least that's what Spider-Man said. But it works, right? Like it kind of works. Saturn limits the gratuitous, egoic excess of Leo. It works. Let's talk about Saturn in Sagittarius, another fire sign. Saturn in Sagittarius, eventually that individual will understand the higher principles of philosophy, law, and religion. And they may have grown up in a religious home. And they may have gone to church every Sunday, and they may not have liked it. And they may have at some point in time rebelled or left the church, but I guarantee you with Saturn and Sagittarius, they're coming back or they're going to find their way back, because this is the nature of Saturn, right? It's like where you have Saturn in, it is your life lesson. It is your life teacher. And it shows where you have the greatest potential. And so Saturn in Sagittarius is wise, right? It's sort of like, you know, the Pope without a fish hat. Now, it could also be very dogmatic. Don't get me wrong. Saturn in Sagittarius can be very, very dogmatic. But if you sat down and you talked to a person with Saturn in Sagittarius, you're talking to a person that has some wisdom. And you would listen to what they have to say. And again, like there's this moral correctness that comes with Saturn and Sagittarius in a bit of a different way than Saturn and Leo, but it's there, right? It's there on the sort of more religio-philosophical side. Leo, sort of the patriarchal leadership side. And so Saturn can slot into those roles, even though they're in fire signs. Aries is a completely different thing. Completely different thing. Aries is pure expression, right? It is just pure expression. There's no thinking with Aries. It's being, it's acting, right? It's in the now. It's now. It's now. It's now. And what does Saturn do on top of that? Well, I suppose if you're an infantryman in an army, Saturn in Aries might serve you, right? Because that's what Saturn in Aries would do. Stick you in an army, and all of a sudden, here's all these rules. Here's all these commands, schedules. Like your life is not your own anymore. You don't get to do what you want to do. You don't get to just be. No, you have a governing body on top of you that tells you where to go, what to do, how high, how low, right? That's Saturn in Aries. Now, if you are looking to shape the individual into a model citizen who has probably done some time in the military, Saturn in Aries has a place for that. But it's very different than Saturn in Leo and Saturn in Sagittarius. Both of those Saturns are like guardrails, and they serve as showing that individual like a higher version of what their Saturn can do over time and responsibility, and to some degree limitation. Very different with Aries. Very, very different. And we bring Neptune into the discussion here. We haven't seen this in like 60,000 years. I mean, come on, this is like brand new territory. And of course, we have a war that's not really a war, which, by the way, we talked about months ago, and we were looking at Iran's chart, which we'll look at again tonight. And, one of the main things about this war now has become oil and the Straits of Hormuz and desalination and all these Piscean things, right? You've got these basically, Gulf island states out there that are dependent upon ships coming in and bringing them food. Bahrain cannot really grow its own food for the entirety of its population. The UAE, these are not great food regions. You might get some date trees. And where does that food come from? It comes from ships. Right? So what we're really seeing here is some heavy-duty action when it comes to oil, petroleum, shipping, limitations. We got limitations here. That's Saturn. Saturn's sitting right on top of Neptune. Iran says, you ain't getting through the Strait of Hormuz. Now, what's interesting about Iran, this is kind of genius. They will let other countries bring their ships through. Now, I don't know how they differentiate, but if there's a ship that is somehow tied to the Americans, or there's an American ship, then it's like shooting ducks in a gallery. It's like a carnival game. But they're being very selective. Like, you can go through. No, you cannot go through. You can go through. It's like they're like at the nightclub, right? They're oh yeah, come on in. You can get no, not you. So that's Saturn. It's very limiting. right? And so Trump has been looking for partners. He's been looking for partners. Hey, we need some partners. We need some people to get involved. How about you, France? No, thanks. We're going to sit this one out. There's no coalition. There's no coalition. It's the United States and Israel. That's it. Maybe a smattering of the Gulf states. That's it. Like, normally when you start a war like this, you go in with a coalition. You get people to commit to being on your side. This is what George Bush did in Gulf War One. You had all these countries. Oh my God! Yeah, we're down. We're in. We're going to rip that bad man Saddam Hussein. We're going to join. We're going to join you. What did they call it? The forces of the willing or some shit like that. But not this time. There's no coalition here. So this is very Aries, right? Like going it alone. And the square with Jupiter makes this, I think, even more obvious, especially as we get into this Saturn-Jupiter square. And I feel like, Jupiter's right there on Sirius. This is conjunct the American sun right here. This is our 4th of July birthday. And it just feels like the Saturn coming in and squaring Jupiter, which squares Sirius, which squares our sun. That's really problematic for this country. It means that we're going to have to deal with more limitations. You know the mantra. Short-term pain for long-term gain. I mean, isn't that a fucking Saturn and Aries kind of sentiment? That's a Saturn and Aries mantra. Short-term pain, long-term gain. Because Aries is all about the short term. It's all about the now, but the long-term gain, oh man. Just wait. Remember that golden age? Just right around the corner. We just got to go through this short-term pain. I don't think things are going to get better anytime soon, astrologically speaking. Not with Saturn squaring Jupiter. Oh, you know what? I had this. I listened to Art Bell last night. Came up on my feed, and it was an old Art Bell from 1989 or 1998 rather, and he had John Hogue on, the Nostradamus scholar. It was actually really interesting. I like John Hogue. Nostradamus talked about, basically, he was able to boil down that Nostradamus talked about a war between the United States and Iran. Now, Hogue's timeline was off, or the timeline based on Nostradamus was off. But it was very interesting that he was talking about this in, it was 1998. And I was just listening to that before I went to bed last night. I'm like, wow, man, this is really good. Art Bell he was a trip. Anyway, yeah, it just feels like when you get that Saturn Jupiter square, and Jupiter, to me, Jupiter in Cancer, conjunct our sun and conjunct Sirius, in some ways is a reminder of, and I'm strictly speaking about America here. I can go global in a minute, but it's a reminder of how good we have things. I mean, things are not perfect, but there are some other places in the world that are much worse off in many regards. And yet, with Saturn coming in and beginning to square that Jupiter, in some regards, it puts the good life, right? The the bountiful Jupiterian, Cancerian, it's a triple sun, right? Because it's the United States' sun in Cancer, it's Jupiter, which is the second sun, and it's Ceres, which is the binary twin of our own sun. So that's a triple sun. And Saturn is coming in and squaring all three of those entities, making it much more difficult. It's like, ooh, you want these things that you have taken for granted for so long. Well, maybe you might have to fight for them. And when I say fight for them, this could be in a number of different directions. I mean, maybe you'll literally have to get on a transport and go to the Middle East. By the way, there are going to be troops there. I think they're already there. I think they're in staging areas already. I've heard that they're sending National Guard. Can you believe it? You're a fucking National Guard person. And like your thing is, yeah, man, I'll do this a couple weekends. You know, I'll supplement my income. Maybe I'll have to go deal with Antifa every now and then, but I can. What? I'm going to Iran? You're sending me to Iran? I didn't sign up for this shit. It says National Guard. It doesn't say International Guard. Where does it say International Guard on that document I signed? You need to tell me this, motherfucker, because I didn't sign up for this. And yet, I just read it. National Guard troops being summoned to the Middle East. That's where it starts. We got the Marines, right? Mars and Pisces, Neptune and Aries, mutual reception. They're on their way. And here comes Saturn, squaring off against Jupiter. How many Americans do you really think are into this war that's not a war? Percentage-wise. I'll be conservative. I'll say 65%. That's a conservative number. If I wasn't conservative, I would say somewhere between 70 to 75%. But I'll just play the number conservative. Now, how many of those, what percentage of those Americans would refuse to send their sons and daughters to a war like this? And if there was a draft, and we can't rule that out, by the way, if there was a draft, would it move the needle from 60, let's say again, conservatively, 65% to 75, 80% against the war? I have a feeling it would. And what's that going to look like? Right? What is that going to look like? So we look at Saturn and Aries here in a different kind of light. Like, what are we going to have to fight for? Are we going to have to fight for putting down this whatever government in Iran? Or we have to fight for the fact that we don't want to go over there? It's your war. You started it. Why don't you go send a bunch of Israelis over there and fight it? Now, keep in mind, right, there's a time right around tax time, April 15th, 16th, right around there, massive stellium in Aries. Big stellium in Aries. Sun, Moon, Mercury, Mars, Saturn, Neptune. The only planets not Aries in that sort of succession would be Jupiter and Venus. Venus is just moving into Taurus, and we have Jupiter. All those Mars planets are going to square Jupiter. They're all going to square Jupiter. It is going to be hysteria. Mid-April will be hysteria. I would not be surprised if there are riots and troops on the streets of America in April. I would not be surprised at all. And Steve wanted to talk about Chiron and Aries. Maybe this is a good time to bring it into the discussion. So we're in the third decan of Chiron and Aries, which puts it in the Sagittarian decan, right? And when we get into Sagittarius, what are we talking about? We're talking about religions, foreign countries, right? Of all the decans of Chiron, the three decans of Chiron in Aries, the one that it's in now is the most zealous. Without a doubt. It is the most zealous decan because it's in the Sagittarian decan, which is very ideological and driven by philosophies and systems and dogma. And if we were to go into the US chart, which we will, you'll see Chiron in Aries in the fourth house. And along with Saturn and Neptune, the United States is going to have a rough go of it with this transit. I'm telling you right now. A lot of people say, they've been black-pilled. Look, I have to be true to the astrology. I have to be true to the astrology. I can't just sit here and, blow smoke up your ass. Now, is there something interesting that can come out of it? Sure. Absolutely. You want sovereignty? If you want sovereignty and you want personal responsibility and autonomy and authority, here comes your time. You'll have to fight for it, but here comes your time. Because that's what it's going to come down to. Like, what is it going to be worth? And it's going to get very difficult. Very, very difficult. If we have, getting back to this stuff with Neptune and Saturn and Aries and the Gulf and the Strait and, not getting petroleum out, not getting sulfur dioxide out and all the other stuff that they need, right? All the other stuff that we need. It's not coming. It will affect our economy. Not only that, but those little island caliphates out there, they've all invested heavily in AI, in data centers, both on their land and in the U.S. And what happens if their economies go to shit and they can't get the oil out and they can't move forward with their plans? Things will not go according. It will not be business as usual. I can tell you that right now. It will not be business as usual. So can we benefit from this? Sure. We can benefit from it, but it's, there's a price to pay for freedom. There's a price to pay for being quote unquote sovereign. And maybe this is what it's going to take. Maybe this is the thing that people are finally going to have to stare down. That at the end of the day, the people that we've placed our full faith, credit, and trust in don't give a shit about us. And they've all just become a viper's den of corrupted, self-interested, transactional oligarchs. That's it. And they could care less about us. They're looking at their watches, trying to figure out how long it's going to be before AI comes on. And Elon's got his robots up to task so they can replace a bunch of us. I'm telling you that right now. They don't want the middle class around. they don't want the plebes around. Because in many cases, they remind them of where some of them came from. Because not everybody was born into old money. Some of these people had to really sell their souls to get to where they are. So they don't like to have reminders of where they've been. And then for, some of the old money types, there's just an outright contempt. It always has been for the quote unquote common man. And in a lot of ways, it's weird. Like in a lot of ways, I can kind of understand it. I don't agree with it, but I kind of understand it. Let me give you a little story. So I like to raise hell a little bit, but in a good way. And I started to go onto this app Nextdoor, which I'd never done before. But I started to read a lot of posts, and I wanted to get a feel about what people were talking about, particularly here in Kerrville. And I was struck by, and I want to keep this in a reasonable tone. I was struck by how folksy these people were. Okay, they were folksy. What they were posting about was very local, like super third house. And I'd say 25% of the posts were about pets that they had found or pets that had gone missing. And every now and then somebody would bring something up, or did you see what was going on I-10? There were, five cop cars and a sheriff pulled over. Did you guys see that? There's a burn ban going on. I've got eggs for sale, stuff like that. I mean, this is kind of very local focal stuff, right? And every now and then they, might broach a larger topic. So I decided to throw some things out there. And one of the things that I'm actually kind of passionate about is this place has been just completely wrecked by the flood. Like down by the river, you had I don't know how long, more than just decades of vegetation and bird life. And there was an entire ecosystem on the banks of that river. It was green and it was beautiful. And it was like the aorta that ran through the city, right? And it was one of the reasons why I actually moved here. And also because of my mother, and there were some services here for her. It was the river. It's beautiful. And then 4th of July last year, it's a fucking disaster. And the banks of the river for miles look like the surface of Mars now. Everything's been ripped away. Right? Like this kind of jewel, like the one jewel that Kerrville has, it's been like raped and stripped bare. And it's very hard to look at. So I thought, well, Kerrville needs a little something, right? And I put out this idea on Nextdoor, and I said, it'd be really cool. There's this guy, Jimmy Rogers. He's very influential in country western music. He was a yodeler. And he lived in Kerrville a long time ago. And I said, it'd be great if we had like a Jimmy Rogers Hill Country Cultural and Music Event Center, where we could have like a 500-seat outdoor amphitheater, a smaller indoor stage. We could have some spaces where they could keep some of these traditions like banjo picking and Texas line dancing. And, yodeling and, these traditions alive, right? And the hill country is known for like Willie Nelson and Waylon Jennings. It's got kind of this outlaw kind of country vibe. And I said, would it be great if we had this? Because we need something to remoralize the town. And it would be great. It would be a destination for people. Hey, let's go to the Jimmy Rogers musical arts Hill Country Center. And the replies on Nextdoor were very interesting. Most of them were positive. Some of them were so, I would say, provincial. Right? It was like really, really provincial. And it kind of blew my mind, to be honest with you. Right? It kind of blew my mind. And one of the things somebody said was, oh, we don't want this place to turn into San Antonio or Austin or Houston. Well, first of all, you don't have to worry about that. We just like it nice and peaceful here with a good quality of life. And I'm like, it wasn't rude, but, define quality of life. What's it mean? Quality of life to you. What does it mean? What it might mean to you might mean something very different to another person. There's a reason I'm talking about this. And it gets into the fourth house. And if I flipped into the US chart, right, and we went in there with Saturn and Chiron and Neptune, right? If we want a different world, we're going to have to take responsibility for it. So if I'm really interested in creating this idea for this musical arts center, like, I'm going to have to do it, right? Because it's my idea. And not because it's my idea and I'm going to show everybody, but this is where we are with Aries, right? If you want to do something, if you want, and it gets right into this thing, like with what's going on in the country. If we want a different experience with our country here, we're going to have to stand up. And I'm not saying we got to, have a revolution or a revolt, but the greatest power that the individual has is the word no. No. We're not going to do this. We're not going to send our children off to war. We're not going to support this. Right? We are just going to continue to say no until we get to the point where the options are going to be ultimately yes. Will it take action? It might. It might. We might have to opt out of the system. That'll be hard. Especially if we're, on some kind of digital credit score, digital money system, it's going to be very difficult. But, and it's like, you thought it was hard during COVID. Oh, just wait till the next round comes around. At least with COVID, there were opt-outs. There's not going to be many opt-outs for this next iteration. And ultimately, it'd be great if we got out ahead of it. But, now we got to deal with this war. That's not a war, right? That's what we have to deal with. And there are going to be some people who are just going to be content with the status quo. Getting back to Chiron and Aries, I'm a little concerned about the square with Jupiter because Jupiter will pick up more speed than Chiron. So Jupiter is going to go into a tighter square with Chiron. It just feels so propagandy, so propagandy, so like on the heels of a false flag propagandy. That's what it feels like to me. It says all those kind of American values in Jupiter, and they're all gassed up, right? And I'm not saying they're bad, but they're all gassed up. And then the square with Chiron. And I don't get a good feeling about it unless, of course, people are willing to stand up and say, no, we don't want this. Yeah, I was watching, we're getting close. We're getting close. I was watching Trump at this rally in Kentucky, and he's backing this guy, Ed Gallarine, I think that's his name, to take on Thomas Massie. And so he goes there for Ed Gallarine, and there's the crowd that's there. And, you know, normally when Trump says something that's kind of obnoxious, but people love it because he's saying what they wish that they would say or could say. You know those moments, and then they clap and they jeer, right, or cheer. He had one of those moments, and it was silent. Dead fucking silent. And then he kind of moved on and went to the next thing. And it was incredibly lackluster. Like, good luck kicking Thomas Massie out of that seat. I don't think it's going to happen. Like, nobody's going to go run out and vote for Ed Gallarine. And Trump did move the needle. So then he brings Jake Paul out, who I guess grew up in Cincinnati, or is from Cincinnati, over the border. Jake Paul shows up, and his armpits look like aquifers, okay? I mean, this guy wasn't just sweating. He was providing enough moisture for a municipality. And what's really ironic is that owns a deodorant and anti-perspiration product. It's like, dude, that is not a great testimonial for the armpit shit you're selling. Some of the people who watched it and chimed in on the comments said that's usually a byproduct of too much cocaine in the system. Now, I wouldn't know about that. That's true. I've never been a person who's ever had too much cocaine in their system. I've never been that guy. Never been that guy. Remember, I said too much. I'll qualify that. So let me round off Chiron and Aries, and we'll kind of get back into this a little bit more, try to make it more personal. Chiron and Aries, which has been around for a while now, really afflicts mostly Gen X, right? Mostly Gen X. Chiron was discovered in 1977, and it was in Taurus when it was discovered. So if you go back in time, like a lot of 1968, 67 people, all the way up until the mid 70s, that's your Chiron and Aries generation. And it works differently for men and women. So I used to talk about this a lot as Chiron was going into Aries. But for women who have Chiron and Aries, the women tend to be strong-willed and independent, and perhaps maybe a little too competent when they're younger. And maybe they show a bit too much spirit, if you know what I mean, right? And what happens to those young women is, in many cases, right, they're told to ratchet their act down. We don't talk like that. We don't act like that. You know, you're not the center of attention. Whatever. It's like you got to get back in your box, right? And unfortunately, for a lot of Chiron and Aries people, many of them were born when Pluto went into Libra, which is around 1970. So some of their Chiron and Aries is also marred by divorce, right? Because they're the children of the baby boomers, and the baby boomers, you know, are getting divorced. So that plays a role with Chiron and Aries. And also, you know, you kind of get the last generation of the latchkey kids with Chiron and Aries and being out on your own, right? And coming home and learn how, I mean, it's sort of the edge of the latchkey kid generation. But what happens with women is that, okay, well, if I can't be independent, or you're calling me bossy, or all these other things, then I guess I'll go over to Libra, and I'll you know, I'll be polite. I'll figure out where I fit in. You know, maybe I'll find a relationship, right? And then guess what? It doesn't work. Anytime you deal with Chiron, or you don't deal with Chiron, you wind up going to the opposite sign, and it never works. Like, you try to escape it for a while, and eventually you're sucked back into the Chiron vortex. And that's for women with Chiron and Aries. For men with Chiron and Aries, it's different. It's almost the opposite. Like, men with Chiron and Aries tend to be more feminine, right? They tend to be kind of more metrosexual. Like, you can see that with, you know, with how, like, I think Leonardo DiCaprio has Chiron and Aries. Pretty sure about that. He's very metrosexual. And we started to see this sea change in actors and images of masculinity. Now, Johnny Depp, I don't think has Chiron and Aries. In fact, I'm pretty sure he doesn't. But he hasn't quite come of age with Chiron and Aries. But he sort of gets swept up in that. Right? So for a man who has Chiron and Aries, their role is to find out more about how to be a man. Right? Because they're also growing up in a time where women's lib is starting to happen, you know, and so their whole thing is, well, I'll go to the other side too. I'll go to Libra. Yeah, women have rights too, right? There are equals. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of, and I think this is a great Chiron and Aries moment. Pretty sure this is around Chiron and Aries. Is the Bad News Bears. The first Bad News Bears movie. And the star of the team was the pitcher. Pitcher was Tatum O'Neal. Right? It was Tatum O'Neal. And then the other star of the team was that guy, Kelly, what's his name, who rode his motorcycle around and smoked cigarettes. But to me, it's a very Chiron and Aries movie, because a lot of those kids, right, they're not very good. They're kind of misfits. They have, you know, they're all boys except for Tatum O'Neal, who's the ace pitcher. And they're all boys, and none of them are very good. But because they have Kelly, what's his name, and Tatum O'Neal, they start to get much better, and they start to believe in themselves. And the final scene, one of the final scenes of the movie, is they're in the championship game, and they're going up against Vic Morrow's team. And Vic Morrow he always played a really really good asshole, and Vic Morrow's son is pitching, and he goes out there and humiliates his son, and he hits his son. Right. And like a total Chiron and Aries moment, the humiliation of the male. And then what does the son do? He just starts serving up meatballs to the other team. And he defiantly looks at his father, says, like, fuck you. Right. It's a very Chiron and Aries moment. He's kind of taking back his power in a way because he's wounded. He's a wounded warrior. His father came out and yelled at him in a game and hit him. Right. Love Bad News Bears. You want to get a little Chiron and Aries. I'd say that's a pretty good move for it. Okay, let's get on to some of this other stuff. I don't want to spend. Here, let me round this off. Let's just talk about the week ahead. Okay, I'd say like the next 48 hours, as this moon begins to move into the balsamic position, just get real centered. Just get real centered and deep and grateful and thankful. Right? That's what I would do. Get real centered, deep, grateful, thankful. Count your blessings. Something I have to remind myself sometimes. Count your blessings. And guess what else? Do your best to be kind to other people. I'm working on that one. Do your best to be kind to other people. And that's a good place for this balsamic Piscean moon. Speaking of kind, I suppose this falls into that category. There is a friend of the show. Let's see if I can find it. And it is our friend, Marianne Smith. And she needs a portable oxygen machine. And she's about $215 away from getting her portable oxygen machine. And Marianne is an artist, and she used to be a body worker. I don't know what she's doing these days. She could definitely use your help. And she's $215 away from getting herself a portable oxygen machine. So if you're interested in helping her out, you can, there's a link in the description for tonight's show, and that'll kickstart your moon in Pisces, balsamic moon in Pisces. And you can pay a little kindness forward to a stranger. All right, there we go. So let's do this. Let's, where do we want to start? Oh, man. Let's start with, it's hard. I wish I could get all three of them on the screen at the same time. Let's start with this Ayatollah Khamenei. Now, again, I don't know his birth time, but I feel like this might be a good one. 330, Neptune on the ascendant, very religious, right? And there's like there's Ayatollah Khamenei and Ayatollah Khomeini. It's very Gemini. So we got Gemini in the midheaven. And, the rumor is that he stayed at home. He didn't retreat to a bunker. He didn't fly around in Persepolis 1. And to me, that's very Mars in the fourth house. Right? He's going to go down. He's going to go down with the ship. So there you go. There's Mars in the 4th house. I think it kind of works. So that puts all of his planets over here, right? Right over yonder. And that's all 8th house stuff. So he's born April 19th, 1939. And we can see that there was a solar eclipse that day. And what's also very interesting is that he has Uranus conjuncting his sun. No matter where it shows up in his chart, something sudden, swift, and disruptive happens to this man. Do I think he's dead? More than likely. More than likely. Particularly if I'm right on the ascendant. And again, I'm just taking a stab at it. But if we look at Chiron, right, we're just talking about Chiron, and I'm sorry, he's right at the end of Aries. My bad. Right at the end of Aries. Right there, 28 Aries. So Uranus has already passed over. That was a long time ago. So Chiron, the aforementioned Chiron, is much closer. Oh, interesting. So Chiron would be somewhere at the midpoint between Saturn and his moon. I'd say that would make him pretty vulnerable. He's got Venus and Jupiter in Pisces. I tend to think of this conjunction again as being very religious, very Abrahamic. He's got Vesta also in Pisces. He's sort of like I don't know, whatever you think of the guy. Like, I'm sure in his community, he's considered like a wise elder, which would be Vesta, right? And he's got Pluto at the final degree of Cancer, which is what I was talking about earlier. My mother, born 1938, same degree as Pluto. And a lot of squares going on here. He's got a Sun-Pluto square. That's interesting. This guy's not afraid to die. He's not afraid to die with the Sun-Pluto square. Not at all. I also think that there's a lot of inherent responsibility with this chart. Remember I talked about Saturn and Aries? And he's got to conjunct his moon. He's got a moon. That's a rough conjunction. That can be tough on women. I'm just saying, right? A Saturn moon conjunction can be tough on women. But if they follow the rules with Jupiter Venus conjunction in Pisces, well, it just goes so much better. Like, I've seen videos of Tehran from about, I don't know, a year ago, and there were a lot of women that were not running around in burqas. There were women who had their faces uncovered. Now, if you went into some of the other cities, you would see more face covering, but that wasn't happening in Tehran. So I'm just trying to set the record straight a little bit here. But yeah, man, I could see where he'd be tough on women with that Saturn moon conjunction and squaring Pluto for sure. Right. Is there anything in here that would say he's dead, Jim? Well, we got Pluto at the early degrees of Aquarius. He's got this Pluto. He's been going through this Pluto opposition. Usually when people go through the Pluto opposition, they live well into their 90s, and even until their 100s. So I don't know if that means that he's still alive, by the way. all the reports say that he's dead. But you can see that the eclipse right here, right? This is, and I have all the time and date stuff for the eclipse. Let's see. So that was Bibi's eclipse. Yeah, so this is the April 19th eclipse right here for the old Io. What's interesting is that his eclipse takes place mostly over the United States. Look at that. It's kind of interesting, right? The eclipse doesn't take place over Iran. It takes place over this country. And it comes from the Pacific. Look at that. And it really kind of ends in Northern Europe. So that was the eclipse shadow path for Khameni, United States. Very interesting. By the way, did you notice that just after the eclipse, the last eclipse in Virgo, the lunar eclipse that happened in the Pacific Ocean, like in alignment with Hawaii, that Mount Kilauea went off and is now active. Did you see that? That happened just like days after that eclipse. Okay, since I have the app open, why don't we look at Netanyahu? And Netanyahu, this is his eclipse. This is the eclipse path for Netanyahu. And this is one of those Antarctic eclipses. And this would be a partial solar. So here's the eclipse path on the day that Bibi was born. So basically going through Australia, right, and down into Antarctica right there. So as far as Netanyahu's chart goes, we'll bring that up. All right, so here we go. There's his sun at 27 Libra. You can see there's the south node, there's the moon, there's the sun, there's the true node. He has a true node in Aries. You think he's living out his true node? Isn't that something? It's like, whoa. Hey, back it up. Back up that true node, man. Like, go hit that south node, brother. We need a little more of that south node. You've got enough of this Aries shit. You learned it, okay? We get it. You learned it. You're very aggressive. Go back and do the south node thing. But he's got his true node in Aries. We talk about this, right? We talk about, well, yeah, man, this is your true. This is really interesting. This is a very interesting discussion. Because we all talk about, at least, well, a lot of people talk about being authentic. Do you think Bibi Netanyahu is being authentic? I think he is. I think he's being very authentic. In fact, he could probably be even more authentic, if you know what I mean. Right? I always found that to be interesting. Because sometimes when people are authentic, they're assholes. Their authenticity may rub people the wrong way. Their authenticity may border on being a sociopath. I'm being honest here. Being authentic doesn't always equate with being whole or individuated. It doesn't. Oh, he's being an authentic asshole. Well, guess what? Now we get to understand what that is. We get to see what that looks like. That shit, that's authentic. And now we get to figure out whether or not we want to deal with that person's authenticity. He's got his true node in Aries. He's a warmonger. And it's in the fourth house, right? The place of his birth. Total constant war. And he's got Saturn coming in and conjuncting his true node. Very interesting. So let's say, for instance, he isn't dead. Okay. There's going to come a time, and that time is next year, when Saturn hits his true node and he's done. Right now, what's interesting about this is that the last time Saturn was in Aries was when Bibi Netanyahu first became prime minister of Israel. I talked about this before. So he is coming into this 28.5, 29 year cycle with Saturn. He's done. Right? Like he's done. Whether he's done today or next week, clearly he will be done by next year. Whatever has happened, right? The legacy, the absolute path of destruction he's left in his wake will be done. I tweeted this on Twitter, I don't know, maybe about 4 or 5 months ago, 6 months ago, because I noticed this. I went back into Saturn and Aries. It was the first time that Netanyahu got elected. In fact, I could even show you. Pretty sure this is the year. Let's see. Let me find it. Oh, I guess I can just go to his Wikipedia page. I'll just do that. All right. Okay. That works. All right. So Netanyahu, June 18th, 1996. June 18th, 1996. All right. Let's do this. Okay. Yep. Saturn in Aries at 6 degrees. So I'll show you here. 1996. We'll go here and we'll go into June. Where is it? Hold on. Let me find it. There it is. Right there. May 30th, Likud party led by Benjamin Netanyahu wins a narrow victory in the Israeli general election. So he's actually sworn in June. That's Saturn in Aries, right? And he has not been the PM for the whole time, but he's been consistent enough so that this cycle is coming to an end. And when it conjuncts his true node, that's it. He'll have fulfilled his purpose. He'll start World War III. That's how authentic he is. He's got that real slippery Libra quality about him, doesn't he? He's got Mercury in Libra, Neptune in Libra. There's his moon in Libra, Ceres in Libra, Pallas in Libra, Sun in Libra. He's just Mr. Congeniality, isn't he? With all this Libra. Now this is his chart. So he's got Saturn in Virgo. That's the highest planet in his chart. And he's got that Mars-Pluto conjunction in Leo. Man, that is... And his Mars is conjunct Regulus. By the way, his Mars is conjunct Donald Trump's Mars. Oh, my God. It's like both of their Mars are like hanging out together. It sounds kind of weird. But, you know, Mars and Leo, Mars and Pluto and Leo, you don't fuck with that. That's heavy duty energy. Right? Good luck dislodging this guy from power. I mean, you literally almost have to, you know, kill him, snatch his soul. Right? Saturn's going to be interesting. It's going to start to oppose his Neptune, like get to 14 degrees this year. That could be a weakening of his position and power with the Saturn-Neptune opposition if he's not already gone. You could totally see this Venus-Chiron thing on the ascendant, right? Venus and Sagittarius. You know, it's like Venus, the ruling planet of Libra. And there's Chiron. Oh, we're always hurt. We're always wounded. Please help us. Right? We need good partners. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what more I can say about this chart. He's got a Mercury-Uranus square, so he doesn't follow the rules, does he? He makes his own rules. Mercury-Uranus square. It's like, fuck the rules. He's got Jupiter going through his 8th house. Still have a Jupiter-Jupiter opposition. If he's still around, Jupiter-Jupiter opposition can represent an overreach and overestimating one's position. Not always good. There's money involved here too. I mean, again, if he's still around, TBD. Even though there was a press conference, you know, we're living in the age of AI. Unsurprisingly, he does not have a lot of water in his chart. He's got Uranus in Cancer, and he has the vertex in Cancer. That's it. So, and I listen. I don't mean to offend here, right? But people that don't have a lot of water in their charts, they have a hard time with emotion and feeling. Like I talked about my mother, right, who's a Pisces, and besides the rising sign and Pluto and her sun,
She didn't have any water in her chart. And I remember, when my father passed away, I never saw her cry. I saw her get angry because she had all that Aries in her chart. Like that's what she was able to tap into, was the anger. I never saw her cry around that. Maybe she did in private. I never saw it with me. I was around her a lot. Now, if you don't have a lot of water in your chart, it can be offset if you have planets in water houses. If you have planets in the 12th house, or you have planets in the 8th house, or you have planets in the 4th house, you have some water access. So not all is lost. If you have one planet in a water sign and you have another planet that is in trine with it, you can get some of the benefit of that, right? Or let's say a sextile. Sextile would be better because it'd be out of the element. He doesn't have any water. He's got Uranus in the vertex. That's it. So is this man capable of compassion? I'd say absolutely not. Nope. Can you trust this man? With a Mercury-Neptune conjunction, I would say no. That'd be a big no for me. Just in general, Mercury-Neptune conjunctions. Now, you may have a Mercury-Neptune conjunction. Well, I hope you're a good creative writer. I hope the fictions that you spin have a place on a page somewhere versus somebody else's life. This guy is a salesman. This is really what he is. This is a used car salesman with an absolutely killer psychopathic instinct with that Mars-Pluto conjunction. That's what he is. He's a salesman. And he's been selling chaos and self-defense and indignation for decades. Decades. In that Jupiter square with all those planets, right? His sun, moon, it just over-exaggerates everything. Absolutely everything. He's got that Saturn-Venus square. In some instances, Saturn-Venus square is like lasting relationships. I think his Venus might be conjunct the U.S. ascendant. Let me get in here and find that. I'm pretty sure it is. Let me just go to my USA chart. Oh, yeah. Oh, man, we are so lucky. We are so lucky. And I'll throw it up here for you. There it is right there. Here we go. I'll show you guys. Here's Netanyahu's Venus. It's right on the USA's ascendant. Isn't that great? We're just really tight with his Venus. Man. Talk about convenient. It doesn't get more chummy than that. My great friend, United States of America. Did you know that my Venus is conjunct the United States rising sign? Do you know what that means? Yeah, man. And then the square with Saturn, right? Like friends for life. Friends for life. Not only that, but it's is it square the U.S. Saturn? Saturn, no, it's trines. What else has he got here with the U.S. chart? Mars in the 9th house. Oh, that makes sense, doesn't it? Let's go over there and fight. Let's go follow Bibi's Mars. Alice Cooper did a song called Bibi on Mars. Anyway, you can see that his true node is also in our 4th house. And his lovely wife, Sarah, and his son are now residing in Florida. How about that? Making a home here in the U.S. He's been here enough. By the way, he actually went to high school here in Pennsylvania. His last name at that time was Milankowski. And he went to the same high school as Mark Levin, although they were separated by 8 years. And his Jupiter is conjunct the United States Pluto. What do you know? Money, resources, you name it, we got it. We got it for that Jupiter. I mean, for me, the Venus conjunction with the ascendant is like too much. Can we get a divorce? Can we somehow? It's coming to an end. The 29-year Saturn, 29-year Saturn cycle, it's coming to an end. Right? This year makes 30. Saturn 5 degrees, that's where he was when he became PM. And if that's not enough of a demarcation, then it's going to be that true node at 15. You want to see this chart with Trump? Let me see here where you at. Donald Trump, right there. Look at those bars. Can you say crossing swords? My Mars is bigger than your Mars. No, baby, I think my Mars is bigger than your Mars. My Mars is closer to my ascendant. They're brothers in arms. Look at that. Man, he's all around Trump's Libra stuff. Moon, Neptune. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Very familiar. His Venus is in Trump's 4th house. Look at that. Feels right at home. And here we go. Donald Trump's vertex is conjunct Bibi's Jupiter. Okay, so we have a couple of vertex actions going on here. Let's talk about those. So the vertex is the second ascendant. It's always going to be between house 9 and house 5. And we find out who we are through the other. Right? We find out who we are through the other. Well, it just so happens that Jupiter here is conjunct Donald Trump's vertex. He's getting something out of this relationship. I can tell you that right now. And Netanyahu's vertex is on Trump's Saturn. This is really interesting. We have a Saturn-Jupiter opposition. Now, there are people that said they don't like each other. Maybe this is, I don't know, my Mars is bigger than your Mars, right? Or let's combine our Marses together. I would say that for Trump, his vertex conjunct Netanyahu's Jupiter is about power, money, and influence. Like Trump is kind of a big deal in Israel. And I think it's through Netanyahu and the Netanyahu government that he's been able to like expand his profile, right? For Netanyahu, his vertex is conjunct Trump's Saturn Venus. And that's power, right? That's power, that's access, that's keys to structures of power through Donald Trump. So they have these interesting vertex points with one another. It is, in a weird way, a very symbiotic relationship. And also, in some ways, strangely transactional. That's what I feel. Like, I think they're both getting something out of each other, but they're both using each other. Right? That's what I think. And they both know that each other is using the other. It's weird. But this is what I get. It's strangely transactional. And each one is profiting and benefiting off of the other, but through different ways. For me, though, those dueling Marses, look out. Look out for the dueling Mars. Okay, why don't we take a look at what's going on with Iran's chart? Let's get into Iran's chart. And I'm pretty sure I have it here. Let's see. Did I ditch Iran's chart? I might have. That's okay. We can go to Astro theme. Okay, the Islamic Republic of Iran. This is the chart right here. And let me share it here. All right, so now the difference between this chart and the Astro Dean's chart are the degrees of the IC and the midheaven. Okay. So this has changed now. What the fuck? Okay, so here's the fourth house. Now they've got the fourth house at 22 Pisces. Right? But this is also the fourth house. And down here, you can see where Aries is. Right? So this is where Saturn has just moved into the Aries portion of Iran's fourth house. There's going to be a Saturn-Sun conjunction in Iran's chart. This is from 1979. And that's going to happen fairly soon, actually. Let's see. What are you doing over there? Jasper's been hanging out. Okay, so March 28th. Let me see if I got my coordinates right here. March 28th. No, a little bit after that. May 9th. May 9th. May 9th, we have the Saturn Sun conjunction of Iran's chart. That'll be interesting. So we can look at this in a couple different ways. First of all, it is going to go to 14 degrees. It will retrograde and come back again, and then it stops at 4 and comes back again to 10. How I would see this would be that there would be new leadership, obviously, in Iran, Saturn, right? There would be new leadership. There would be a change in the guard. But it doesn't go as smoothly as intended because of that retrograde. And I could see Iran going through another leadership change next year. And that would be sometime in late January, early February of next year. But again, just like with Netanyahu, like there's kind of an end of because Netanyahu comes on the scene in 1996, right? Saturn, and then it's like not far from his true node, sort of beginning to fulfill his destiny. And in 1979, they just say, okay, we're this new Iran. So that version of Iran is going to come to an end. So if you're on the let's kick the Ayatollahs and the mullahs out, there can be a chance that could occur, right? Because it's the end of a cycle. That said, it doesn't always mean that it will revert back to what it was. It could be a new iteration of the thing, right? So if I were to make an astrological estimate as to when this would fully end, it would be next year. Wrap your head around that. If we're not out of there in 2 to 3 months, the results are going to be heavy. But that's officially, right, when Saturn finishes its retrogrades over Iran's sun. So that's big. It's big news. They have their Jupiter return coming. Uranus is on their moon, right? That's another really interesting transit. I would not be surprised if we also get news of like an earthquake, a massive earthquake in Iran. Would not be surprised at that at all. They have the technology to trigger earthquakes if they want to use them. This is going to be a really interesting time. Really, really interesting time for this country. Because change is going to happen, right? It's just, how does this change manifest? And Iran has Mars in Pisces. So they're going to have their Mars return. That's coming as well. So interesting that a country so connected to oil has Venus, Mars, Mercury, all in Pisces, right? All trining Jupiter in the 8th house and other people's money. Really fascinating. Saturn in Virgo near the midheaven. To me, that's like your mullah territory, right? That's religious leaders, strict Virgo. But, you know, the way that I see this is that you start a country with Saturn retrograde and Mercury retrograde. There's going to come a time when the structure of the country is going to change. And I think we're witnessing that. You know, whether Iran comes out stronger, like it could come out stronger with us. You know, if they get through this Saturn, like conjunction, retrograde, conjunction, they come out of that and come through that, they can outlast, you know, their foes or enemies. They will be stronger. All right, it's kind of like what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, but it won't be the same. Won't be the same government. You know, I've heard that the son is more radical than the father. I don't know. That's just what I've heard. But even with Neptune on the ascendant, what's interesting is that when we looked at Khameni's chart, you know, the one that I just put together, Neptune was on his ascendant. That's not quite on the ascendant. It's 13 degrees off, but still in the first house. And yeah, it's a religious country. But again, another retrograde, Neptune retrograde, Uranus retrograde, Pluto retrograde, Saturn retrograde, Mercury retrograde. This is a chart fraught with retrograde. I don't see how they can hold on to their current form of governance with all the retrograde. And particularly the Mercury retrograde. Like, bad time to start a country. I'm surprised it's lasted this long under this version. Anyway, look, I'm a believer that countries should be allowed to manage their own affairs, even if we don't agree with them, as long as they're, you know, that they don't hurt us. And I don't think we've actually really been hurt by any Iranians yet, right? So I'm like, hey, let's sit this one out. If Israel has a beef with these people, let's sit it out. They're going to go through change, though, I guarantee you. And that war has come to them with Saturn in their fourth house. All right, let's look at two more charts. Let's look at Trump, check in on his health, and then we got a little James Tallarico. Okay, so I think Trump is in trouble health-wise. And it's Saturn going through his eighth house. And I've been talking about this for a while. So he's got Saturn opposing Neptune, and he's going to have Neptune opposing Neptune. I mean, I don't know how Trump makes it through this Saturn transit. He's got Saturn squaring Mercury. I don't think, you know, to me, that Saturn Mercury square is kind of reminiscent of this rally down in Kentucky for Ed Gallerine, right? It's like the snap, crackle, and pop isn't there. You know, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, people are cheering, huzzahs, laughter. It was dead fucking silent. Dead fucking silent. And so he's got some issues with Saturn squaring Mercury. Like, that's when the message starts to fall flat. And it can get harsher though too, right? It's like overcompensating. Well, if it's going to fall flat, then let me overcompensate. Let me be harder. Let me have more of an edge. And I could totally see that with Trump. You know, it's kind of like how sometimes people with Alzheimer's, they get angry You know what I mean? They get angry. And it's like such a, and I have this theory because anger brings you clarity. Like when you're angry, like all your senses are attuned, right? You got all those the cortisols flow in, the testosterone's go in, like you're lit, right? That's when if you're in a low state of constant anger all the time, like you're lit all the time. And I remember seeing this woman who was on Dr. Phil, and she was angry all the time. And her husband brought her there, and she was addicted to how the anger changed her brain chemistry, because it made her feel like if you're peaceful and passive, and I know, and I'm oversimplifying this, but if you're peaceful and passive, you're like, oh, what's the big deal? Go. Right? Like your guard is just down. Your senses are not attuned. You're kind of, flatline. I'm not really depressed, but I'm also, let me worry, right? Oh, yeah. And I'm not saying that's a bad place to be, but it's also a place where you can get really blindsided. And people that are at a low anger threshold, they're always looking around for the imminent threat, right? And it feels to me like people who get angry when they have Alzheimer's, it's like their attempt to kick in with their sensory perception in some ways, like because like somewhere they know that if they get angry, it'll be sharper or clearer, right? There's this sense memory around anger. And so the body kind of default. Now, some of it, they just may be angry because they can't do the things that they once did or remember the things they used to remember. There's part of that in there too, right? But there's also summoning of anger to overcome the fog of dementia. So there's like a double down effect, right? And I kind of see this with Trump, with this Mercury-Saturn square. And because Saturn's in Aries, and it's like doubling down, like, we were vicious today. We were savage today. You should have seen how many ships we blew up, right? They're wiped out. They can't do it. I mean, that's like a Mercury-Saturn square. And he's having to do that because he has to double down. Now, he's prone to exaggeration anyway, right? Mercury square Neptune, Mercury square Jupiter. We've gone over this. The man is a hyper exaggerator, okay? But this Mercury-Saturn square is troubling because it is also a sign to certain people in the inner circle, behind the scenes. Don't forget, Neptune's coming in there and squared Mercury too. He's losing his marbles. Donald Trump is starting to uncoil synaptically. And I'm not saying it because I'm an anti-Trump person, right? I'm not into the war, but come on, we got a Neptune-Mercury square, people. Neptune-Mercury square. Neptune opposing Neptune. Saturn squaring Neptune. Saturn opposing Neptune. This man's judgment should be scrutinized over and over again. These are not good transits. Just wait till Mars goes through his 8th house. That's coming. It's going to conjunct Saturn. It's going to conjunct Neptune. It's going to square his Mercury. He's going to have a fucking meltdown. Mark this week, second, third week of April, Donald Trump is going to have a major meltdown. And there's a potential that Donald Trump could be taken out and or removed from office during that time. It's the nature of Mars. I'm just reading the chart here, right? They say that the seventh house is open enemies. Well, they got Mars there right now, right? But when it goes into the eighth house, that is covert. That's covert. The last time, Mars happens every 2 years. It was really interesting is that when we went through COVID, Mars was going through Trump's eighth house. And I still believe that Trump was set up with COVID because his initial response to me was sane. He gave a great State of the Union. He was like, we're just giving 2 more weeks. It's just like a flu. He started talking about hydroxychloroquine. I mean, okay, somebody's got his ear. And then all of a sudden, the script changed, right? And I bet you we could trace that back to when Mars went retrograde in Aries in his eighth house. Was he threatened? Was his family threatened? Did they say, hey, you can either be a hero by promoting the super vax or, we can wipe out your family and your fortune. Which one is it, Dawn? I'll be the hero with the super vax. Good choice. And he's got the Pluto opposition coming up too. It's going to take a few years, but it's coming. I think these transits through his eighth house are not good. They're not good. So what you want to keep your eye on is JD Vance. Keep an eye on JD Vance and see if there's rumors of corruption, infighting, JD Vance being forced to resign. If JD Vance is forced to resign or something comes up, then that would signal that Trump's time is coming to an end. So JD Vance is our canary in the coal mine with this. Keep your eye on JD Vance. All right, we're almost out of here. Before I go, I do have to put out a little shout out here for our friend Chris over at True Hemp Science, who's a sponsor of the show. And all you got to do is spend $100 or more, and you will get the goodie bag, some of those gummies that Jack was raving about earlier on in the show. The gummies are worth the purchase alone, but you get all these wonderful tinctures like Solara, and then we also have Synapta, right? And they're great for hydrating your cells and getting in there and doing just a really deep reset. So you spend $100 or more, type in 15MINS, you get the goodie bag. $150 more, you get free shipping. TrueHempScience.com, your one-stop shop for all things CBD. Okay, let's do a little James Tallarico. I thought this picture was so fucking fascinating. When you guys see this, you're going to get what I'm saying. Okay, this is James Tallarico at a rally. And the thing that really jumped out at me was this guy right here. I saw this photo and I'm like, that's Jesus. He's got Jesus on his right hand shoulder. On his right. Look at that. Now, you tell me if that guy just randomly showed up in that picture. He's from fucking Central Casting. You got to be kidding me. Right? Do you see how they're setting this guy up? You see that? And he looks like a combination between Pat Robertson and Opie. Now, what I did is I rectified his chart. He looks like a fucking Virgo rising, doesn't he? Every hair always in place. Right? Virgo rising. So he has a very interesting chart. He's a Taurus. Let me zoom in a little bit here. That still blows my mind. So he's a Taurus, 28 Taurus. He has Mercury in Gemini and it's retrograde. He's got Venus in Gemini and he has Jupiter in Gemini. So he has an amazing capacity to take a question which could put him in a cul-de-sac and flip it around and make it sound like he's giving the Sermon on the Mount. This guy's dangerous. He's very dangerous. And he's got this Mars conjunction with Chiron in Cancer. And he's got a Mars-Pluto trine. This Mars-Pluto trine is serious, right? It is serious because Pluto is about power. And you hook Mars up to it in any sign, right? This is a power aspect. But it's in Cancer. And he's got this conjunction with Chiron. And it's like he has this ability to get, it's like he can stand up for the little guy. Like he has that. I'm telling you right now, right? Matt Walsh is saying that he's crazy and he's insane. You cannot write this guy off. And I'm not here to support him. So please don't misconstrue what I'm saying. But again, if I'm reading the chart, right, this guy's got charisma and he has magnetism. And it's that Mars-Pluto trine and even Chiron trine Pluto. Like he has the ability to tap into people's pain, at least at a level that they understand or they feel that he understands. You know, there was that Star Trek episode. Is it called like, it's a movie. Is it like Return to Eden or something like that? And Lawrence Luckinbill plays this kind of messianic figure, and he touches people on their heads, and he's able to get them to relive their trauma and experience like deep peace because they've reconciled their shadow and their pain. Like he does this to everybody. Have you guys saw it? I think it's called Return to Eden. Tallarico he's got a version of that. He is able to appeal to people who, like this. He's the cleanup guy. All you Trump people who are disenchanted with Donald Trump, come under my tent. All you Democrats who've been forced to support these crazy loudmouths, look at me. Come into my tent. Right? This. I'm telling you, man. You got to keep your eye on this dude. If he's elected senator, And there's a good chance he could be. Like he's going up against John Cornyn or Ken Paxton, and he can make them both look like fossils. How long was Barack Obama a senator? 2 years. How long was J.D. Vance a senator? 2 years. This guy's old enough to be president. Wrap your head around that. Old enough to be president. His Mars is conjunct Sirius, which means it's conjunct the U.S. sun. That's pretty propitious for Mr. Tallarico's chart. His moon is really weird, though, right? His moon is in this singleton territory. It's just hanging out down there in Libra. But, it's his moon is conjunct Spica. So he comes across gracious and charming, and he's well-mannered, right? That's a total moon and Spica kind of vibe, right? And, of course, he's a millennial, Pluto and Scorpio. And what's also interesting is his true node is at the beginning of Pisces. Look at that. And when he went up against Jasmine Crockett, Mars was conjunct his true node. You want to talk about a boost, a level up? And this is why he's able to tap into the religious thing so well, right? He went to seminary school. His grandfather was taught him all about the Bible and religion and being a Christian. Now, his father, who left his mother, his father's last name is Collins. He was adopted by this guy named Tallarico. And as I talked about on Friday's show, Collins is one of the Illuminati families. What's her name? Collins. She wrote The Hunger Games. Suzanne Collins wrote The Hunger Games. Remember Barnabas Collins? Remember him? Dark Shadows? The guy who was like the patriarch of the vampires in that little town in New England. He was a Collins. That's his family name. There's something really weird too about this chart, right? Like he's got that singleton moon. He's got those big conjunctions up there. Again, I gave him that Virgo rising. What are they doing though? Right? They, kind of in conjuncting and yachting off, right? He's got that Jupiter yod to Pluto and Saturn. That's powerful, man. He's got Uranus coming in on his Mercury just in time for election season. And he's got Neptune on his Pallas. This guy knows exactly where he's going. Now, there is a bit of a creepy side to him because there's like he follows all these weird porn people. Like there's this like little scandal about I'll show you. But for whatever reason, right, it hasn't really reared its ugly head. Devout Christian, Texas Dem, caught following more prostitutes, including a bisexual Latina cyber slut on Instagram. So he follows these people. Tallarico's campaign spokesman, JT Ennis, said the candidate has not had any interactions with these women. He also follows models Zoe Pugh, whose Instagram page links to her OnlyFans, and former Love Island contestant Valerie Bragg, who links to her OnlyFans on Threads. I love to play and I'm dangerously addictive. Subscribe at your own risk. So what is this dude following these women? There's Zoe Pugh. There's Valerie Bragg. Follow at your own risk. You can tell he's a Taurus. Likes those full-bodied women, even if one of them might be a female to male, male to female. Hasn't really hurt his campaign much. So I think that's it's all that Jupiter, all that Gemini shit. And then the inconjunct with Pluto and the inconjunct with Neptune, Saturn, Yod. Who knows what side of the plate he hits from. But that's the thing with Gemini, right? I mean, it kind of just rolled off his back. You know, it's the nature of Gemini. He's got the sun conjunct. He just had Uranus go over his sun, right? So that's a radical transformation. And hey, when you got Jesus on your side, how can you lose? There's no way he can lose. Is that Mary Magdalene? Or is he following her on OnlyFans? Anyway, there you go. James Tallarico. All right, we're out of here. Good 3-hour show. Thanks for being here. Chattaria, you're the absolute best. Sunday night's my favorite night of the week. I get to come here, hang out, shoot some astrological shit with you guys, throw some stuff at the wall, and I hope we all learn a little. A little. Okay. That's it. Oh, before that, Meow Meow, he's gay. I would not be surprised. Wouldn't be surprised. Dark Shadow, he looks like a younger Collins. Barnabas Collins was creepy, man. You got Joan and Jackie Collins. That's right. Yeah, those are some other Collins. Don't forget Tom Collins. Used to be famous. Nobody drinks Tom Collins anymore. I like Crockett better. Crockett's more entertaining. Come on. At least you know where you stand with Crockett. Right? You know where you stand with that little loudmouth. James Tallarico, he's slippery. He's a slippery one. All right. Take care, y'all. Have a great night. Have a great week. We'll be back Tuesday with the Astro weather. I'm going to bust out an old axiom here. Use your head in order to discern what's real, your heart too to open to what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. Good night. Hit the like, hit subscribe, and be your best self. Bye for now.